Billionaire's mom loathes his bold curvy girlfriend. Then she discovers the shocking truth: the sun dipped low in the sky, casting an orange glow over the sprawling mansion that looked like it belonged in a film rather than reality. Inside, the atmosphere was thick with tension, and the air crackled like a live wire. Millionaire mogul Victor Hartley had it all: money, power, and a reputation. But nothing could prepare him for his mother's relentless disdain for his new girlfriend, a stunning woman named Lila with a curve that could melt steel. Victor watched as Lila entered the room, her vibrant red dress hugging her every curve, a bold statement in a world that wanted her to fade away. The way she walked, confident, proud, was as if she held the weight of the world but wore it like a crown. But the moment she stepped through the threshold, a shadow flickered across his mother's finely manicured face. Mrs. Hartley's icy stare pierced like daggers, stirring an uneasy silence. You could almost hear the collective gasps from the staff, the whisper of shock traveling like a ripple through the air. "Mother, this is Lila," Victor began, but the words hung awkwardly. Mrs. Hartley's lips curled into a tight, disapproving line, and the distance grew like an insurmountable chasm. Her deliberate scoff echoed in the elegant hall. The tension was palpable, as if the walls themselves couldn't bear witness to this instant of conflict. "Really, Victor? Her?" Mrs. Hartley's voice dripped with contempt, carving its way into Victor's chest like a jagged splinter. This is who you want to be with?" A lump formed in his throat as her words slithered through the air, wrapping around him, squeezing tightly. Lila stood firm but uneasy, her confidence dimming under the glare. Just then, an unexpected sound, a crash from the kitchen, pulled their attention. The chatter of house staff halted abruptly, replaced by the clatter of silver falling to the floor. What had caused that? Was it another sign of the chaos swirling around them? Victor's heart raced. It wasn't just the tension between his mother and Lila, there was something more lurking beneath the surface. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect." Lila took a deep breath, pushing back her unease. There was something in her eyes, a flicker of determination and resilience. Mrs. Hartley's expression softened, then twisted back into disdain as she spat. "Victor, you need to think clearly. That girl is trouble." Trouble? What did she know? Victor felt a fire igniting within him, a protective instinct bursting forth. But before he could answer, another crash echoed from the kitchen, louder this time. Was it just the chaos of a busy household, or was something sinister unfolding in the shadows? Every instinct told him to investigate, but the look on Lila's face, an uneasy mix of fear and fury, held him back. As he glanced between his mother's contempt and Lila's determination, a question lingered in the air, thick as fog: what secrets would come spilling forth from the depths of this night? Victor's heart thudded in his chest as another clatter resonated from the kitchen. It was as if the entire house was holding its breath, waiting for him to take action. The gaudy chandeliers above sparkled, illuminating the mounting tension, but they felt more malevolent now, dangling like unshed tears. "Stay here," he whispered to Lila, urgency lacing his voice. He took a step back, his instincts kicking in, and began moving toward the kitchen. With each stride, his mind raced. What could possibly be making such a racket? Was it just the staff, overwhelmed and clumsy, or was there something darker lurking just out of sight? He turned the corner, the cool marble tiles beneath his feet adding to his sense of foreboding. As he stepped into the kitchen, the scene was chaotic. Pots lay strewn across the floor like thrown weapons, and one of the cooks stood frozen, her eyes wide and mouth agape. "What happened?" he demanded. It's the pantry," she stammered, pointing a trembling finger toward the swinging door. Without thinking twice, he pushed forward, bracing himself for whatever awaited. With a swift shove, Victor burst into the pantry. The dim light flickered as his eyes adjusted, revealing a mess of flour, shapes blending into shadows. Something was off. Panic tingled down his spine. And then he saw it, a figure crouched in the far corner, the dim light only revealing a silhouette. "Who's there?" Victor called out, his voice echoing against the shelves. The figure straightened up, and for a moment, a breathless silence settled. Then, the figure turned. It was an old family friend, the kind with fables tucked into their pockets, a face marked by time. It was Mr. Jenkins, the family's former butler, grizzled and wild-eyed as if he had seen a ghost. "Victor! You need to get out!" he exclaimed, a tremor in his voice. "They're coming for you all." A shiver coursed through Victor. "Who's coming for us?" "People you don't want to know. Dangerous people." Victor felt the floor shift beneath him, the weight of his life tilting precariously. "What do you mean? What do you know?" The questions poured out like an overflowing dam. Suddenly, the kitchen door swung behind him, nearly slamming shut. Lila stood there, her face twisted with concern. "Victor!" I heard shouting, "Stay back!" He yelled instinctively, not wanting to drag her into whatever this was. "Please, just tell me what is going on," she pleaded, her voice cracking, but before he could respond, a sound more chilling than any threat emerged outside, a low roar of engines, drawing closer. "It's too late," Mr. Jenkins whispered, his eyes darting toward the window. Victor's heart seized as adrenaline surged through him. The realization crashed over him like a wave: he had to protect Lila, keep her safe from whatever was coming. With a surge of determination, he grabbed Lila's hand, the warmth of her palm somehow grounding him. "We need to leave. Now." The roaring engines drew closer, and shadows moved outside, dark, daunting. What on earth was happening? And who were those ominous figures? The answers loomed like the gathering dark, and for Victor, the night was just beginning. Victor yanked Lila by the hand, urgency flooding through him. He could feel the heat of fear rising in his chest as they raced toward the back door, the wood creaking ominously beneath their hurried steps. "We can't stay here," he shouted, his voice barely cutting through the aggressing roar outside. "What about everyone else?" Lila's voice trembled, half afraid, half frantic. She cast a glance back at the chaos of the kitchen, a swirl of terrified staff and the frazzled cook still frozen in shock. Victor's jaw clenched. "We can't help them if we're caught too." He pulled her closer, transforming fear into an electric urgency. Flashes of headlights sliced through the kitchen window. Victor felt a ball of ice settle in his stomach. The shadows outside convulsed as figures emerged from the vehicle's dark shapes, swarming closer like a storm. He locked eyes with Mr. Jenkins, whose expression was both grave and alarmingly serious. "Do you know them?" he barked at Jenkins, desperation edging his tone. "They're here for you," the old man hissed, his lean frame tense as if ready to spring. "Trust me, they won't hesitate. You have to move. Now." Without another word, Victor dashed through the back door, pushing Lila ahead of him. The cool air hit them like a slap, grounding them in the dire reality. Outside, the night loomed ominously, but he couldn't afford to look back. The gravel crunched underfoot as they hurried to the far side of the property, desperately looking for an escape route. "Where are we going?" Lila gasped, glancing around anxiously. The ground spread before them, trees standing guard like sentinels under the moonlight, but shadowy figures blurred in the distance. "There." Victor pointed toward the old garden shed. It had been unused for years, but it might just conceal them long enough to figure out what to do next. They stumbled into the shed, breathless. Inside, darkness lingered, a heavy blanket wrapping around them as they pressed against the musty wall, their hearts drumming in their ears. "We can't stay here long," Victor said, straining to peer through a crack in the weathered wood. I need to know what we're dealing with. Lila, her forehead lined with anxiety, shook her head. What if they find us? What if listen? Victor interrupted, both to silence her fears and to focus on the sounds outside. The engines had stopped, replaced by the unsettling echoes of voices, low and threatening. They spoke in clipped sentences, moving with a purpose that cut through the darkness. Find them there nearby. Searched the perimeter. A chill wrapped around Victor as he instinctively tightened his grip on Lila's hand. It felt like a lifeline in a storm. He turned to her, urgency filling his gaze. Stay quiet. We can't let them know we're here. The weight of the moment pressed down on them, thick and suffocating. Then, silence. It reverberated in his ears, more unsettling than the chaos before. They held their breath, waiting. As the minutes dragged on, Victor's mind raced. Who were these people? And how did they know to come for him? Before he could conjure another thought, the door creaked open suddenly. Shadows spilled into the shed, silhouettes outlined against the pale light seeping in from behind. Victor's heart dropped. It has to be them, he whispered, panic clawing at the back of his throat. Victor. Lila's whisper shook, her voice barely audible over the pounding of his pulse, but then, a familiar voice echoed from outside, chilling them both. We know you're in here. No time left. No place to run. Get ready, Victor murmured, his stomach knotting with intense fear, compounded by the adrenaline pushing him forward. They had to make a choice: fight or retreat. And what would happen if they had no choice at all? As the figures advanced toward them with an intensity that froze his blood, Victor's mind raced. What would he sacrifice to protect Lila? And in this darkness, what secrets would be unveiled? The door rattled on its rusted hinges, and shadows loomed closer, filling the tiny shed with a tension that felt palpable. Victor's heartbeat thundered in his ears. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to shove Lila behind him and burst out of their hiding place. Stay down, he hissed, crouching low. Fear coursed through him, but determined resolve burned brighter. Lila pressed close, her warmth a fragile comfort against the chill of dread. Who are they, Victor? Her wide eyes darted to the door, tension making her voice tremble. He had no answer. Was it the same group that had haunted him for months? Faces masked in his mind, always just out of reach. Each time they taunted him, each time they threatened, he pushed their existence deeper, hoping they would vanish. Heavy boots thudded against the ground outside. Voices mixed with the rustle of trees, creating a haunting symphony of menace. We know you're in here. Come out, and we won't hurt you. The teasing lilt hung in the air, mocking them. Victor felt the icy grip of danger tighten around his throat. He shot a glance at Lila, her expression mirrored his own, panic mingled with steely determination. Let me handle this, he whispered fiercely, heart racing at the thought of exposing her to whatever was coming. She shook her head, a stubborn spark igniting in the depths of her eyes. No, we face this together. Her voice wavered but was resolute. He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. She was right. They needed to be a team. Whatever peril lay ahead, they would confront it united. A loud bang against the door jolted them both. The shadows outside shifted, eager and relentless. This is your last chance. Come out. With every breath, the air grew thicker, suffocating. Victor's mind raced. He had valuable secrets, but had he truly betrayed them? His nights were haunted by those battles he had lost before. But the truth? It lurked just beyond the immaturity of their fears. A second crash split the tension. The door trembled, splintering at the hinges, and Victor felt Lila clutch his arm, her grip tight and fierce. Now or never, he urged, calculating the distance to the door, the weight of darkness pressing against him. Wait. Lila whispered urgently, pulling at his sleeve. What? He snapped, frustration mixing with dread. We could hide in the back. The door gave way with one final crash. They were surrounded by the intruders. A tall silhouette stepped into the shed, their features masked by darkness. You thought you could escape? Pathetic. Victor shoved Lila behind him instinctively, but she pulled him back, defiant and determined. Who are you? Lila demanded, her voice gaining strength, shaking Victor to the core. The figure chuckled, stepping farther into the light spilling from the doorway. You really don't know? It's adorable. Victor's stomach dropped. What do you want? You. That money of yours? We're here to settle the score. Those words struck like a blow. Every secret from his past began to converge, mingling with memories he had locked away. He peered deeper into the figure's face, searching for some thread of familiarity. Wait. You're not here for her? Lila's voice wobbled, but she pressed on. You're after Victor? Both, actually. But the clock is ticking for you, Victor. Victor's heart pounded. In that moment, he realized the threat was far bigger than he had imagined. Not just the loss of wealth, but a loss of everything he held dear. Could he keep Lila safe? He felt the tension shift as he clenched his fists, weighing his choices. Behind the walls of this shed lay the echoes of their other lives, but which one would they choose now? Just as he gathered the courage to act, footsteps shattered the moment, approaching from the outside. More of them? Or something worse? What is happening? Lila urged, her eyes wide as shadows flared across their hiding space. The urgency surged again. Victor knew this was about to change everything. Run, he murmured, feeling the weight of his promise. But could he protect her in this chaos? The truth, it could destroy us or save us, he realized with a spark of desperation. But truth was a fickle mistress. What would it unveil this time? With questions flooding through his mind and shadows closing in, Victor steeled himself for a fight, the answers still hidden in the darkness. What if the truth wasn't just buried in his past, but in his heart? It was about to reveal itself, and he had no idea how deep the betrayal ran. The door creaked under the pressure of the advancing shadows, and Victor could feel an electric charge in the air. Lila's grip tightened around his wrist, her pulse hammering against his skin. He swallowed hard, a lump forming in his throat that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with a suffocating sense of dread. More footsteps, now heavy, deliberate. A shiver ran down Victor's spine. He risked a glance at Lila, whose face was pale, but her eyes shone with a fierce determination. Whatever happens, we stay together, he assured her, though he wasn't sure if he believed it himself. The tall figure from before stepped fully into the shed, the light catching their features. A glint of recognition flashed before Victor could bury it. No, it couldn't be surprised to see me, Victor? The intruder said, throwing back their hood to reveal a familiar face. It was Nash, his former confidant turned adversary. Anger washed over him like a tide. What do you want? Victor spat, the words tasting bitter. Nash chuckled, the sound low and mocking. Oh, you know exactly why I'm here. You thought you could outrun your debts. But you underestimated my patience. Lila's confusion was palpable. Debts? What debts, Victor? He turned toward her, desperation flooding his veins. I swear I had no choice, Lila. They were going to take everything from me. I thought what? That leaving me in the dark was the answer? She interrupted, eyes blazing. You could trusted me, Victor. Nash stepped closer, clearly enjoying their exchange. This isn't just about trust. It's about survival. You owe me, Victor. And I'm here to collect. Victor took a deep breath, weighing the situation, feeling the walls of the shed pressing in. You can't just threaten us like this. Oh, but I can, Nash said, his tone dark and serious. You're in my territory now. The money you owe isn't just numbers on a balance sheet anymore. It has faces, it has muscle. My muscle. Sudden movement caught Victor's eye. From the forest beyond the shed, men stepped out, forming a line outside the door. They were waiting silent, watching. Anxiety bloomed in Victor's chest. Step aside, Victor. Hand her over to me and maybe I'll go easy on you, Nash taunted, his eyes glinting with malice. Never. Victor shouted, his voice cracking. He felt Lila's fear and tension coiling around him, urging him to protect her, to shield her from this messy reality of his life. What do you say? Nash leaned forward, amusement dancing on his features. You think you can handle this? Lila stepped out from behind Victor, her resolve clear, even as raw fear flickered in her eyes. If it's money you want, we can find a way to settle this. But you'll have to go through me first. Victor stared at her, a swell of warmth spreading through him, but the threat was real. There was no easy way out of this. You see? This is what I wanted, Nash sneered. No longer running in the shadows. I'll make you both regret standing against me. With a swift movement, he gestured to the men outside. They surged forward, the air thick with danger, teeth gritted, intent on crushing whatever hope flickered in the tiny shed. No! Victor shouted, panic heightening his senses as he grabbed Lila's arm, pressing her back against the wall. But there was no hiding from this fight. Everything inside him screamed to protect her, yet he felt the truth bear down on him relentlessly. He had allowed darkness to seep into his life, and now it threatened to swallow them both whole. The rattle of chains echoed behind the advancing figures. You think you're the only one with secrets, Victor? Nash whispered dangerously, stepping closer, teeth bared. Let us see just how deep your betrayal runs. Victor's heart raced, the terrible weight of their situation settling in. Choices loomed like shadows over the two of them, and the cost of the truth was about to become unbearably steep. What could he sacrifice to save the one person who meant everything? As footsteps thundered closer, Victor instinctively shielded Lila with his body, ready to confront his past, but he knew. The battle ahead might mean losing everything. Could he find a way to fight the darkness and save her, or would betrayal claim them both? The horror was only beginning to unfold. The ground shook beneath the weight of the advancing figures, their footsteps like thunder rolling in. Victor's heart raced, each beat pounding louder than the last, his instincts screaming for action. He pulled Lila closer, her breath quick and shallow against his chest. Nash stood there, eyes glinting with victory. This is the part where you realize you've lost, Victor. Hand her over, and I might let you walk away. Walk away? Victor's voice shook. You think I'm going to just give her to you? Behind him, Lila's eyes darted wildly, searching for an escape. Victor, we can't let this happen. We need a plan. Plan? Nash scoffed, a harsh laugh erupting from him. This is no time for plans. This is your last chance. Make your choice. The men outside bristled, muscles coiling like springs, ready to pounce at the slightest command. Victor could see the hardness in their stares, the promise of violence tightening around the shed like a noose. He felt trapped, caught between a rock and a hard place, the weight of every decision he'd ever made crashing down around him. Listen to me, Lila, he whispered urgently. We can't fight them head-on. We need to find a way to outsmart Nash. She looked at him, her eyes reflecting raw fear but tinged with something else, resolve. I want to let him take me, Victor. You know that, right? He squeezed her hand tighter, trying to draw strength from her. I know. But if we don't think this through, we're both dead. Nash's impatience was palpable, every second dragging longer than the last. Enough of this. Draw the line, Victor. It's either her or your life. Victor's mind raced, memories flooding back, the debts haunting him like ghosts. What if I could give you something else? Something worth more than any debt I owe? The words tumbled out, a gamble fueled by desperation. Like what? Nash leaned in, a new light flickering in his eyes, intrigued but wary. "You're in no position to barter." "Information," Victor said, feeling the conviction build in his chest. "I know things. Things that could tear your whole operation apart. You want leverage? I can give you that." Nash, eyes narrowing, considered him carefully. The tension in the air thickened, a moment pregnant with possibility. "What kind of information?" "It doesn't matter yet," Victor replied, trying to sound confident. "Meet me halfway. Let her go, and I promise I'll give you what you need. Just enough to swing the power back in your favor." The corners of Nash's lips curled into a sly smile. "You're a betting man now, huh? But tell me, why should I trust you?" Before Victor could answer, a loud crash echoed from the opposite end of the shed. The wooden doors buckled under the weight of the encroaching men, a sudden splintering noise erupting chaos around them. Someone shouted a warning, an order, but it didn't matter. The door gave way as darkness surged in. "Go!" Lila screamed, shoving Victor forward as she turned to face the flood. "Run, Victor! Get out of here!" "No! I'm not leaving you!" His voice broke, a raw plea against the cacophony, but Lila was already moving, her form cast in shadow, determination shining through the panic. "I'll hold them off. Trust me." In that moment, Victor felt the helplessness rise again, the stark truth that he couldn't protect her by staying. He needed to decide, and he needed to decide fast. A sudden flash of light caught his eye, shimmering just outside the open door. A chance, almost ethereal. With no time to think, he broke into motion, darting around Lila, ready to make the impossible leap. Could he find a way to save Lila and himself through sheer will? Or was he barreling toward a fate far worse than the shackles of his past? The answers lurked just beyond the darkness, tantalizing and terrifying. Every breath was a calculation, and every choice could carve their destinies anew. What awaited them outside was a twisted path of both salvation and betrayal. Victor lunged toward the door, adrenaline spurring him on. With every stride, he could hear Lila's voice echoing behind him, mingling with the chaos that had erupted around them. It fogged his mind, and he barely registered the shouts growing louder, puncturing his panic with the slice of imminent danger. He leaped out from the shed, his feet hitting the ground hard. Bright, blinding light momentarily dazzled his senses, and the sudden change from oppressive darkness to glaring daylight sent confusion rushing through him. He paused, scanning wildly, his heart slamming in his chest. The world beyond was a battlefield. Shadows loomed long and cruel as men surged like a tide, their faces contorted in rage. The cacophony of fists hitting flesh and harsh breaths filled the air. Victor's throat constricted at the sight. He hadn't just stepped into the light, he walked into a savage storm. Where was Lila? Panic clutched him, an icy serpent winding around his insides. He turned back to the shed, just in time to see her silhouette backlit by the chaos, standing her ground against the onslaught, defiant. His heart raced anew, torn apart by the instinct to protect and the pressing need to flee. "Lila!" he yelled, desperation clawing at his throat as he fought the urge to rush back. But just then, a thug lunged at her, a wicked grin plastered on his face. In an electrifying moment, Lila sidestepped, moving like a dancer, fluid and fearless. She pivoted and shoved a heavy wooden crate into her attacker. It crashed into him, the sound echoing like thunder. The man staggered back, surprise flashing across his features. That brief distraction gave her the precious seconds she needed to vanish into the throng of chaos as though she were a shadow herself. "Victor! Over here!" Her voice cut through his panic like a lifeline. Relief surged through him as he spotted her, threading her way toward him. She waved frantically, urgency painting her features, but danger lurked everywhere. Men were closing in, voices raised. Victor felt it, a primal instinct roaring in his ears, urging him to act. Fists were flying, and the scent of sweat and rage filled the air. "Lila, we need to run." he shouted, fear for her life pushing him forward. She nodded, eyes gleaming with determination. The two of them sprinted toward the edge of the clearing, where trees loomed like a natural shelter, their trunks thick and inviting. As they raced into the woods, branches whipped against their skin, tearing at their clothes. The shouts grew distant, but the threat remained looming. There was no safe haven, yet only the echo of pounding hearts and the deafening silence of the unknown ahead. Victor, Lila said between breaths, fingers entwined, her warmth a comfort in the madness. What did you offer Nash? What did you mean? His stomach turned at the thought of what he'd wagered. Just information. Things about his operation. Things? She questioned, worry swelling in her voice. What things? Victor, you can't trust him. Trust is a luxury we can't afford right now, he shot back, the weight of their choices clinging heavy in the air. But his words felt like sand slipping through fingers. How could he promise safety when he didn't even know if they were free yet? They stumbled further into the dense thicket, breathless and wild. Every sound felt amplified, the rustle of leaves, the distant echoes of snarls and commands from behind them, each noise a reminder of the peril they faced. Suddenly, Lila stopped. Victor, look! She pointed toward a flickering light through the trees, its flame dancing like a beacon. What if there's help? Hope flickered cautiously within him as they hurried toward it, hearts pounding with every step. But as they neared, the light morphed into something darker, a menacing glow that took form behind the veil of trees. It wasn't safety, it was foreboding, an omen laced in shadows. Victor! Lila whispered, her grip tightening just as the hairs on the back of his neck stood on end. What awaited them beyond those shadows? Was it freedom or another snare waiting to tighten? Around them? They had committed to each other, but the truth of what lay ahead could rewrite everything they believed. The flickering light beckoned, but its glow twisted in Victor's mind, morphing into an impending dread. They pressed onward, but each step felt like walking deeper into a nightmare. Should we turn back? Lila's voice quivered, her bravado starting to crack under pressure. The noise of the chaos behind them was fading, but the woods felt alive, whispering secrets that made Victor's skin crawl. No, he replied, forcing confidence into his voice. Let us see what it is. There was desperation in his decision, a longing for safety wrapped in the mystery of what lay ahead. They pushed through the underbrush, branches clawing at their clothes and skin. The light glowed brighter, revealing a clearing draped in shadows. As they burst into the clearing, shock sank in. Before them stood an old cabin, weathered and half-collapsed, but its windows glimmered with a strange light. It reminded him of childhood stories where haunted houses hid clues or dangers, but tonight, with the chaos so close, it felt like the last heartbeat before a gasp. Victor, this place, Lila said, her eyes wide with fear. It feels wrong. We need to catch our breath, he insisted, heart pounding harder than before, anxiety ramping up as he stepped deeper into the clearing. The cabin looked deserted. Ivy clung to the walls, and the door hung slightly ajar. The smell of damp wood was thick, mixing with the sharp tang of something chemical. Cautiously, they entered, the wooden floorboards creaking ominously beneath their weight. Inside, the glow enveloped them, emanating from an old generator sputtering in the corner. Near it, makeshift tables were strewn with maps and photographs. Victor's stomach twisted tighter as he saw familiar faces across the clutter, men he understood to be connected with Nash, a web of treachery laid bare on papers crammed with notes. Victor! Lila's horrified whisper shattered the silence. She pointed toward the back wall, where something unnatural drew their gaze. A tattered map of the region was pinned up, and surrounding it were photos of Lila taken from shadows, timestamps marked from days before. It was a sinister stalker-esque collection. I didn't know, he muttered, his heart plummeting. Reality slammed against him like a freight train. Lila, I swear, I didn't know they were tracking you. Victor, we need to get out of here. She was trembling now, and seeing the sheer terror in her eyes suffocated him. But before they could move, a sound echoed behind them. The door swung shut with a thud, slamming them into darkness. The generator flickered, its light flickering ominously before plunging them into near-complete black. Victor. Lila's voice broke through the smothering darkness, urgency spilling into her tone. Panic surged through him. His hands reached out, searching for her. "Lila, I'm here," he said, trying to tame the tremble in his voice, but deep down he felt the terror brewing. Their world had just narrowed to a slim, dangerous edge. Suddenly, the generator roared back to life, sputtering intermittently. The light flickered back on just in time for them to see shadowy figures emerge from the dark corners of the cabin, eyes glinting with malicious intent. "Looks like we have company." The voice was gravelly, laced with menace. "You didn't really think you could just run away, did you?" Victor's blood turned icy as they stepped forward, silhouetted against the dim light, their intentions clear. They were trapped. "Victor!" Lila screamed, and he felt the grip of terror wrapping around them like a vice. The figures closed in, and in that moment, Victor understood the depth of the trap they had wandered into. This was no mere hideaway, it was a predatory lair, and they were the prey. "Victor, we need an escape plan now." Lila shouted over the rising tension, desperation lacing her words, but in that instant, the old cabin creaked ominously. What would they find if they chose to fight or if they tried to run? And who were the shadows lurking beyond the door? As questions swirled in the air, Victor's mind raced. They had entered a zone of criminal intent and betrayal. The stakes were skyrocketing, and they weren't just fighting for their lives anymore, they were fighting for everything they had, and for the truth that could tear them apart, what lay beyond the cabin door. Their breath quickened, synchronized with the encroaching shadows, the air thickening with a sense of urgency. Victor instinctively turned to Lila, his fingers intertwining with hers, as if their connection could ward off the impending doom. The figures stepped closer, revealing more details. They wore dark clothing that blended into the shadows, their faces obscured by the low light. A twisted smile broke from one of them, exposing a set of unnaturally white teeth against their grim demeanor. Victor could feel Lila's pulse racing in the palm of his hand, a rhythmic reminder of the danger that encircled them. Without any more time to waste, Victor's mind raced through options. "We can't stay here," he whispered to Lila. "We need to find a way out. Look for another exit. Maybe a window or what?" Lila hissed back, her eyes wide with terror. "You think they'll let us just walk out? They've been waiting for us." The generator buzzed, casting erratic shadows on the walls, and the air was thick with promise and menace. A figure stepped forth, illuminating the faintest glimmer of recognition in Victor's chest. It was Nash. Somehow, Victor had known they would meet again under these horrific circumstances. "Who would V thought?" Nash said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "The lost sheep right at my doorstep. You made my job a lot easier, you know." "Why?" Victor spat, outrage fueling his anger. "Why are you doing this?" Nash tilted his head, and in that moment, the darkness around them seemed to pull in tighter. "You're not as clever as I thought, Victor. It's all about survival. You see, those little love letters you've exchanged with Lila? Those are costly mistakes. Anyone who gets close to me is a liability, and crashing liabilities? Well, they get eliminated." "No!" Lila screamed, stepping forward defiantly. "You think you can scare us into submission? We're not afraid of you." At her defiance, the figures snickered, an unsettling sound that echoed around the room. The atmosphere shifted, tension curling at the edges. Victor felt a mix of admiration for Lila's bravery and dread for her safety. "Bravery won't save you," Nash replied calmly, inching closer. "The ones who defy me often suffer the consequences, in ways you couldn't even imagine." Suddenly, a loud crash erupted from the outside, breaking the suffocating atmosphere. Everyone turned instinctively toward the door. A light shone from the darkness, a beam cutting through the cabin's gloom. The figures hesitated, their focus momentarily diverted. What was that? One of them hissed. Victor seized the chance. Lila, this is our moment. We can't wait. He pulled her by the hand, darting toward the door just as the figures snapped back to reality, their eyes wide with panic. They lunged, but Victor and Lila were faster. Bursting through the door, they stumbled into the night, but not without hearing Nash's furious shout echo behind them. Don't let them escape. Get them. They dashed into the underbrush, branches tearing skin as they forced their way through. Heartbeats thundered in their ears, fear propelling them deeper into the woods. The cabin faded behind them, but the danger was far from over. Victor, where do we go? Lila's breathless question clawed at his mind as desperation filled the air between them. I don't know. He replied, his heart racing, each second feeling like a lifetime. We have to find somewhere safe, somewhere they can't track us. Lila's eyes darted around for potential escape routes, her pulse echoing Victor's anxiety. The forest loomed threateningly, branches shattering the pristine darkness with every rustle. Suddenly, Victor spotted a faint light flickering in the distance, a glimmer of hope. Over there! He shouted, pointing. We need to make it to that light. But as they dashed toward it, a low growl emerged from behind them. The figures had unleashed their hounds. The misery rose within Victor's chest as he felt time close in around them. Run! He yelled, gripping Lila's hand tighter. The dread surged anew, and even the hope of light felt fleeting. Would they make it to the road, or had they stepped deeper into a trap far worse than Nash's designs? Every step echoed the clutches of danger edging closer, and Victor's heart thundered with one undeniable truth: freedom was just an illusion. What awaited them at the source of that light? Victor and Lila tore through the trees, branches slashing at their skin, the thundering growls of the hunting dogs close behind. Every gasp for air felt like a weightless nightmare propelling them deeper into the woods. The distant light flickered with promise, but the shadows of despair loomed around them, dark and tangible. Faster! Victor urged, adrenaline soaring as he pulled Lila forward. Her hand felt like a lifeline, but even as they sprinted, he could feel the cold grip of panic tightening around them. The growls grew louder, echoing against the trees, reverberating in his bones. The dogs were relentless, and every second counted. Where is it leading us? Lila shouted, fear dancing in her eyes as they ducked low, narrowly avoiding a whip-like branch. Is it safe? What if it's a trap? I don't care. He shouted back, heart pounding. It's better than staying here. Each frantic stride echoed the beating of their hearts. At last, they broke into a clearing, and the source of the flickering light came into view: a rundown shack, old and battered, but inviting with its warm glow spilling through the cracked windows. Come on! Victor barked as he charged toward it, dragging Lila along. They rushed inside, closing the creaking door just as the first bark from a dog reverberated outside, fierce and close enough to send shivers rushing down their spines. Inside, the walls felt sturdy, the air thick with the scent of wood and memories. A single oil lamp sputtered on a table, casting dancing shadows on the walls. We need to barricade the door, Lila urged, her eyes darting with anxiety. Victor nodded, seizing a nearby chair and wedging it beneath the doorknob. What now? He asked, a tremor of fear creeping into his voice. We wait, Lila said breathlessly. They huddled near the window, breathless, hearts racing, as the noise from the outside swelled. Men shouted, dogs barked wildly, and seconds felt like hours. The throaty growls and slamming footsteps kept them alert, skin prickling with anxiety. Victor glanced at Lila, her face pale but determined. I'm sorry for all of this, he whispered. I never meant for you to get dragged into my mess. Shoo, she put a finger to her lips, her gaze locked on the door. We need to listen. The chaos intensified, each voice a reminder of the stakes. With every word they shouted outside, Victor felt dread coiling like a snake ready to strike. Then, it happened. A clawing shout echoed against the door. "They're inside." Another voice barked, the sound shifting from angry resolve to a menacing jeer. "We'll flush them out." Lila's breath turned shaky. "Do we fight?" Or before she could finish, the door trembled violently, the chair straining under the assault. Victor rushed to her side, adrenaline sparking through him, panic sidelined by determination. "We're not going to let them take us. Not now. Not ever." In that moment, clarity washed over him. "I'll buy you time. You have to escape through the back." His voice was firm, but his heart sank. The truth left an ache simmering deep in his chest. "No. I won't leave you." Lila's voice cracked, a mix of defiance and sorrow. "There's no time." He pressed his palms against her shoulders, looking deep into her eyes. "You're worth fighting for. But you won't make it with me holding you back. Trust me." A moment stretched between them, charged with unspoken fears and the raw weight of love and loyalty. Tears glimmered in Lila's eyes, but she nodded, reluctantly. "Okay, but promise you'll follow." "Please." "I promise," he said. With a quick, lurching motion, Victor pulled back the chair, signaling to break into their last stand. The door burst open with a terrifying bang, and a flash of figures spilled into the room. Victor felt the air shift, all hope teetering on the brink of despair. Two little mice trapped in a corner, one of them sneered, eyes glinting with malice, his hand reaching toward them. "You've nowhere left to run." Drawing strength from Lila's presence, Victor squared his shoulders, fists clenched. "We will fight," he declared, a final roar against the impending dread. Suddenly, from the shadows, shouts erupted. A group of familiar faces surged forward, friends he thought lost to the chaos, allies ready to stand at his side. "Lila! Victor!" A wave of voices called out, breaking the tension. Victor's heart raced as he recognized their faces, fellow survivors from his past, intent on turning the tide. Shadows of loyalty filled the room, conflicting with their fears. Lila turned to Victor, her shock melting into vast relief. "We're not alone," she breathed, hope glittering again in her eyes. "Let us end this together." Victor shouted, resilience igniting within him. Just as the intruders hurled themselves forward, Victor moved beside Lila, a sense of purpose reclaiming both their hearts. They weren't merely fighting for survival but for freedom, love, and the truth that had bound them together through the chaos. With allies at their back and fury burning bright, they stood ready to face the storm. Together, the chaos erupted around them, but Victor knew this time, they would face whatever came next as a united front. Truth was volatile, but together, they could reclaim the life they fought so hard to protect. That if it meant fighting back the shadows and facing the demons of their past, then they would push into the storm, together, always together, and in that refusal to surrender, a new dawn awaited. Don't let this story end here. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss any exclusive stories coming next. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion.